Welcome to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Of course, I'm your host, JJ Kitchen. Guys, it's been a couple weeks. It's been crazy. Lots of traveling going on for me personally, a lot of stuff going on career-wise. It was nice to actually get back finally. It's been a couple weeks, obviously, but there's been plenty of stuff going on. Obviously, fall camp, the first scrimmage, everything that happened here this past week. Lots of good things to talk about. We'll get into that, obviously, too. We'll go over a little bit of the depth chart that I think that where it is currently from things that I've heard, who performed well, who's doing well, maybe who's falling on the depth chart. We'll go through a bunch of that, plus the quarterback competition for where we are right now. Guys, as always, before we get started, the show is sponsored by Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. Again, run by two great Pitt men. Whenever you can support a small business like Colonial Beer, it's always a great opportunity to go see them, but more importantly, support them. When you're in there, obviously, they have numerous amounts of selections when you're there. Plenty of different things you could take a look at, but more importantly, now there's two options. Obviously, you had the fake slide Pilsner, which helps support the players at the University of Pittsburgh and helps support Alliance 412, which is a preferred collective of the University of Pittsburgh. But also now, the new sponsorship and the new collection and the new partnership between the University of Pittsburgh and IC Light, the classic can. Obviously, I actually went and bought a case of it. Obviously, it's flying off the shelves. Colonial Beer has enough of it there. It went so fast the first time around, they went and bought more. So when you're over in your Colonial Beer, you can go in there. Obviously, the can is so cool. It's a very unique can. Obviously, people love IC Light here. Me personally, I don't drink it, but for Pitt, I'll go ahead and buy it. And also, too, I still buy the fake slide Pilsner, a great beer as well, which helps support paying the players. So, guys, when you're over there, go get IC Light, go get the fake slide Pilsner that helps support Alliance 412. Get the Pitt beer cans, obviously, from IC Light to help support Pitt. But while you're in there, too, get something that you like as well. But, of course, go support the two great Pitt men over Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. We go to the comment section here. Daniel, how are you doing, brother? Doing good, man. It's finally good to be back, man. A couple weeks off. It's been crazy between traveling. I went and saw my younger brother in Milwaukee when he got his major league debut up there, obviously. Then he had another one in Tampa. That was really cool. Actually had Pitt fans down in Tampa, by the way, because I know they watched the show. Thank you to all the Pitt fans that sent me pictures from Tampa Bay. It's incredible to not just have people here in Pittsburgh watch this show, but out of the state as well, man. That was so cool to see people sending me pictures. Hey, we're in the bullpen. We're watching the game. It was kind of funny. Was at Jason Aldean's last night and saw a young man that saw Austin play down in Tampa as well, man. That was just so cool. And just the overall support from Pitt fans and just Austin in general. Obviously a Mount Lebanon kid. We grew up in Dormont, moved to Mount Lebanon, and just a great amount of people here. And that's why I tell people the great thing about Pittsburgh is just the great people overall. People wonder, why it's so nice and why I talk so highly, just not of Pitt people, but obviously just the city of Pittsburgh in general. Is because there's the great people that are here and the overall support. It was so cool to watch. So, man, just thank you to you guys. Can't tell you how much it means. Adam, seems like the D-line won't be as bad as most thought. Brayu looks so jacked. Adam, I agree. And again, like I've been telling people, that this D-line is going to be pretty damn good. We're going to dive into it. Got some stuff from the recent scrimmage. There's going to be some names, obviously, you guys have heard about me talk about overall, but this D-line is going to be pretty good, I think. And the defensive tackle room is going to be damn good. There's a lot of competition there. We'll go into that here in a little bit. Will, welcome back, JJ. What do you think of our defensive end corps, particularly depth? Notice Chris Peak described most of them as looking like fat linebackers on his last live, and I don't disagree with that assessment. In a way, potentially, but I don't know if I'd go that far. I think from when I watch them, this kind of fits the mold, and we'll go into the DN room. But overall, I think when you look at Nate Matlock, I mean, the guy's built like a brick shithouse. I mean, on the outside, he's 6'5", maybe not as heavy as you like. You like to add a little bit more LBs, but I can tell you this from things that I've watched and from this past Saturday, it's not slowing him down. He's going to be a hell of a player this year. I think he's going to have 10-plus sacks. You guys can quote me on that. I think he's having an outstanding camp. in the linebacker room. Kyle Lewis, Brandon George, and Rasheem Biles are the three guys that are just currently playing lights out. Cam Lindsey, again, had more takeaways. A true freshman 4-star linebacker at Aliquippa. He's playing at a high level right now. We'll go in the linebacker room here tonight. But in the defensive end room, I think there's really about 4 or 5 guys that really have stood out to this point. And I think that, at this point, we saw last year what it was like to have a little couple bigger guys. I think that the offense didn't help when you're down. Teams aren't going to throw the ball as much. But, when you look overall, you wanted more production of the Deion Hayes. The guy certainly wasn't, consistent over a long period of time. The guy needs to play better. Who obviously wish him nothing but the best up at Colorado. Besides the stuff that happened this past week with Deion Sanders, obviously, not shocked. It's a circus up there. Same thing with Sammy O. You wanted to see more out of him. I think this is an opportunity for guys like Jimmy Scott, Sincere Edwards, Nate Matlack, Chief Borders. We'll go over a bunch of that stuff, but at the same time, though, I wouldn't call these defensive ends fat. I can tell you that they're in damn good shape. I can tell you that. WRW Pitt, hit the like button and subscribe. Yes, if you have not done so, if you're over on Twitter, you're watching on YouTube right now, make sure it's easy. Hit the like button down below. It helps out with the algorithm. And also, too, share this video between Facebook, Twitter, the Pitt Facebook groups. The more conversation, the better. But more importantly, hit the like button and please subscribe. Daniel, so what's your brother? So who's your brother, man? Hear a lot about him. Haven't heard his name. Daniel, yeah, Austin Kitchen. He was in the Colorado Rockies organization. Got called up with the Colorado Rockies. Then he went to the Miami Marlins. Got called up and made his major league debut at the Miami Marlins. So he's in Major League Baseball. So it's cool. It's he's down in Jacksonville right now in the AAA affiliate, but he should be back up here. And Miami's up here in September. So you guys will see me at PNC Park when he comes back up for those games. Who are the sleepers on the defensive line room? And that's good. I'm glad you guys brought this up, and we're going to go into a bunch of stuff here because obviously plenty of notes written down here, a couple pages worth. Overall, where are we in terms of the fall camp? And it's been really cool. And I'm actually going to start this off with a video because, guys, there are a lot of people. And again, I don't watch, Chris Peak stuff, even though Chris Peak does a tremendous job. I think he does a great job. I think Mike Bukovkin does a great job. Harry Pizarros does an incredible job. I haven't watched anything. I've been so busy. I've kind of been just focused on my channel. Hell, haven't even been on my channel. I really like the addition of Kade Bell, and it continues to get more and more. I think when you watch, for instance, I don't know if you guys saw, I tweeted out why I like quiet time and how Pat Narduzzi and Pitt puts this stuff out on a daily basis. And why I like it is you're seeing a really behind the curtain view, with Pat Narduzzi. Obviously, if you're an Alliance 412 member, you got to be on that call. You heard about they had the name Prove It this year. The motto for this year is still we, not me. Lock the gates, but prove it. And that hour of Q&A with Pat Narduzzi was beyond incredible. If you're not an Alliance 412 member, you should be. We heard things that, to be quite honest with you, I want to watch how I phrase this, but it was so cool to see Pat Narduzzi be very upfront and cordial about certain people, about the program itself, where it's going, why last year what it was, why this year is going to be better. Was very candid on certain players that wanted to come here, that didn't want to come here. That stuff's going to be happening again. There's going to be more practices and more scrimmages to go to. If you're not an Alliance 412 member, I suggest you jump on and become members because that was a true privilege to be a part of. And also, too, Pat Bostic did a hell of a job, really being a co-host on there and being the anchor that really asking questions and answering live questions. So, kudos to Pat Bostic and the job that he does. Just does a tremendous job. Obviously, you got EJ Borghetti, a true Pitt man himself. If you haven't been on there, you should be on there. That was a true privilege to be a part of. That was probably the most honest and front worthy that Pat Narduzzi has ever been on a live call like that. That was wild. To be quite honest with you. But overall, we look at this. I'm going to jump on here real quick. I'm actually going to share my screen because I want you guys to see this interview. And this is from Inside the Panthers. It's on YouTube. If you don't know them, you should subscribe to them. I think they're great people overall, and I think they do a really good job. but I'm going to share my screen here, and I think this would be really cool for you guys to see just this interview overall. I think this is just a very cool interview. It kind of goes behind the scenes, and also listen to some of the comments that are in here from Kade Bell. Again, young guy. I think he's going to be tremendous here. I think he's done a really good job of implementing this offense as well. But this is going to be something for you guys to watch. Let's see here. Let's listen to what Kade Bell has to say in terms of the offense and where it is and where it's going.
I love being around them. How have Nate and Eli taken to the new offense? How do you think they're adapting to it since they both came from different types of offenses prior to?
Yeah, I think they're doing great, man. I think they're both attacking it. They always want more. They're those type of kids, man. They're not scared. They're not scared to ask questions. They're not scared to have answers. They're like, hey, if I get this blitz look or something like this, can I check this? Heck yeah. I'm okay with him messing up in practice. I believe for the quarterback to be confident, he's got to mess up some. I can't check every protection. I can't check every blitz. I can't check every run, right? The quarterback sometimes, if it's 8 seconds on the clock and it's 3rd and 4 and we got to get a first down in the red zone, right? He's got to be able to check to a cover 0 blitz and throw a touchdown. So, I'm really pushing them to take ownership of that. Hey, you become the play caller sometimes, right? Now, hey, if you make the wrong call, right? Hey, learn from it, right? And we will, but we're getting them to understand, hey, write down the top 3 or 4 your favorite blitz checks. Write down your top 3 or 4 favorite run checks, right? And so when you get practice, don't be scared to mess up. Take control and be a quarterback. So and they've been attacking that every day, which I love that about them. They act like pros. They're not immature at all. It's good. They actually have a good relationship. They're both competitive as crap. They both love football, but they're always just pushing each other to get better. The one thing I've loved is that when I got here, I kind of felt like there was a lot of groups when it came to the offensive players. Different quarterbacks dealing with different people, and I kind of nipped that in the bud when I first got here. About hey, we're going to do things as a team. We're going to do things together. If
Very good comment there. I'm going to replay it again. I want you guys to listen to what he's saying. The last 2 years, Frank Cignetti had multiple different groups, guys that would watch film at different times. Kade Bell brought these guys together to watch as a team and to watch as a group collectively. I'm going to play that again. Listen to what he's saying here. It's an incredible bit right here.
They're not immature at all. It's good. They actually have a good relationship. They're both competitive as crap. They both love football, but they're always just pushing each other to get better. The one thing I've loved is that when I got here, I kind of felt like there was a lot of groups when it came to the offensive players. Different quarterbacks dealing with different people, and I kind of nipped that in the bud when I first got here. About hey, we're going to do things as a team. We're going to do things together. If one quarterback's throwing, everybody's throwing. And they've done a great job of working together. This summer when they've been out there together, it's been everybody. They've done a great job being leaders and making sure everybody's together. Because to me, a great team got to build relationships, right? And for us to be good at offense, we got to learn how to communicate. If we can't communicate, we're going to be up and down, right? So we got to learn how to communicate, and we got to learn how to hold each other accountable. And they've done a great job with that.
Guys, this is the last one right here.
Geez, this is a better question. This is going to be the last one. Put a lot of pressure on.
Yeah.
How about making a check at the line? Will you be on the field, or do you go to the box? Which one do you prefer?
It kind of depends on the team. At Valdosta, I called it from the box year 3. But the reason why is because we were in the system for 3 years. We had a veteran quarterback. We played the system for 3 years. And everybody was just, we had a vet team, man. We were, everybody knew it was easy to make adjustments, right? I took another job at Tusculum, and my first game I actually called it from the box. And I felt like our communication, new quarterback, new players, new coaches, just wasn't very good. And I like to get things. I like adjuster in games. We're going to try and make adjustments early in games and not wait till the second half, right? So ever since then, I've called it from the field. And so I'm going to be on the field. And the reason why, I want to be able to look the quarterback in the eyes. I want to, have a good feel of what we're doing. And also with the new rules with the tablets, right? I mean, the box is the box now, man. You know, they might help a little bit throughout drive, but shoot, I got a film now. I can just pull it up on the sideline and be like, hey, this is what they're doing. This is what we need to do. So, you know, I'm going to be able to field. And also, I think just the, you know, keeping the guys positive, you know, giving them some leadership, you know, getting them going and getting their confidence going for drives. I think I have to be that guy for the offense, you know. I don't want someone else doing that right now. I want that to be on me, and I want to get them guys confident and ready to go on drives and be able to make those adjustments and face-to-face with the players.
So I thought that was, and I wanted to show that to you guys because, one, that's a huge, huge comment from Kade Bell. You know, one, leadership terms, you know, we're going to do things as a team to make this offense go from where we're starting to where it needs to go. He's done a tremendous job of getting everybody on the same page. And I can tell you this right now from things that I've heard from the scrimmage, from the quarterbacks, from where they were in the spring to where they are now is just night and day. Both quarterbacks, I mean, it's certainly a competition right now between Nate Yarnell and Eli Holstein. And again, I've been a big proponent of Ty Diefenbach. And again, I apologize. Heather's the best. Reached out. The last name is pronounced Diefenbach. Obviously, I was calling it Diefenbach for the longest time. I felt horrible about that. But Ty Diefenbach is a tremendous quarterback. I think he's done a great job in camp so far between the spring and the fall. But right now, I mean, that 1 and 2 spot, it's between Nate Yarnell and Eli Holstein, and it's still going on right now. Number one in pole position, unless he does something obscene, you know, it's gonna be Nate Yarnell. But the fact it's going on this long is something to look at. I just love how Kade Bell has really brought that energy and the youth to this program. And I think that, again, I've talked about this before. Change is a good thing a lot of times. Sometimes change can be a bad thing, but in this case, change is good. I think J.J. Laster, the new wide receiver coach, how he coaches at a high level. You know, the big thing that you saw, you know, Kenny Johnson was recently in an interview this past week at the Southside facility after practice, and he talked about how J.J. Laster and Kade Bell are teaching the wide receivers really how to be more precise in terms of, you know, route running, but also, too, what they need to do to be better in terms of knowing plays. You know, what was a little concerning to me was that Kenny Johnson recently put out and said that, you know what, it was almost like last year he was kind of just running blind. And in the terms that he says, running blind. That's concerning from last year. And again, I like Tyquan Underwood a lot. Great individual, high character. But that's a really bad reflection when it comes down to coaching, when guys were just running blind or just trying to find certain routes that they were trying to run and not paying attention. That's a little concerning. The fact that J.J. Laster has come in here and really bringing the wide receiver room from this level to that next level, how to run certain routes, but more importantly, being more precise. Being more precise in the film room is a huge thing. Jacob Bronowski has taken special teams to the next level. You know, punter, you know, Cade Dowd, and obviously, you know, Junko. I think that's a really good thing. Junko has done a lot better job this year, just taking the different coaching from Jacob Bronowski. Obviously, Gavin Bartholomew, Jake Overman, and Jake Renda all three of them have loved Jacob Bronowski in the tight end room for coaching. And then obviously Lindsey Lamar, you know, another guy who continues to show great projections out to the running back room. You know, Derek Davis was recently interviewed at the Southside facility as well and just said, you know, last year, you know, it was Rodney Hammond and, you know, Rodney Hammond and CJ Flemister really getting just most of the reps, and then everybody else was just standing there. These guys in this camp are getting every bit of reps. They're developing everybody. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing from this group of coaching. You're taking different guys in camp right now and figuring out what you have, figuring out who's going to get more, you know, more repetitions, where at this point they've kind of figured out who's going to get more repetitions, but they're developing each and every player. That's the difference between a program that is consistently in that 6 wins or 7 wins range and then gets you up to that 8, 9, 10 win range. You got to develop the room. You need to develop depth. And that's the kind of difference that we're starting to see with these different players. And the players certainly like the guys that are there now. They love these guys in terms of what they're being able to do. I've heard a lot of good things in terms of coaching from the offensive line room with obviously Jeremy Darveau. He's done a tremendous job. I think these guys are really doing a good job of developing that room. And that's what was lacking these last couple years. You know, again, Pitt had an 11-win season in 2021. They had a 9-win season in 2022. I can assure you guys at this point, from everything I've heard, and we'll go through the defense and the offense and in terms of the depth chart, 3-9 last year was an anomaly because the quarterback play was so bad between Phil Dracovic and obviously Christian Veyer turning the ball over so much and just being ineffective, but also to the scheme. The coaching failed them as well. And I think that there was, and this is my personal opinion, not things that I've heard, just my personal opinion. I think that there were people on that staff last year that got conservative and that were comfortable being where they were. And there was no sense of urgency when things happened. That's just my opinion. I think that those guys got comfortable. I think there was lack of efficiency. It was kind of like, we're happy to be here. There's no really push. This year's a lot different. There's a lot of different coaching points that are pushing these guys where you see it in quiet time where, I don't want to be a good coach. I don't want to be a great coach. I want to be an elite coach. Each player should want to be elite. I think that's a major, major difference of voice and push in terms of this football team and where they're going. And I think that has a lot to do with Kade Bell and a lot of more youth. I think Tim Doust, the defensive line room, has really taken to Tim Doust and how he coaches. He coaches at a high level, has a lot of high energy. Is Tim Doust Charlie Partridge? No. But I think at the same time, he's done a tremendous job of pushing guys to certain limits, and you're seeing guys be developed. And we'll see again. Like I told people, we won't find out what this team is during the Kent State game. We're going to find out what kind of football team we're going to have when we go to Nippert Stadium down in Cincinnati, when we face the Cincinnati Bearcats. We're going to find out week 3 at home when the West Virginia Mountaineers come to Acrisure Stadium. That's when you're going to find out what the hell kind of team do we have. And I think that this is just a different team. That's, Gavin Bartholomew said it, it's our revenge tour. It's our rebound tour. And I just think that there's a lot of different comments going through that Southside facility right now. But also, too, they got a chip on their shoulder, which, again, these guys got to prove it. I understand why the national media has Pitt where they do, at 5.5, 5.5 wins, because there's so many questions going into this game. But I can tell you this, there's a chip on their shoulder to say, that shit last year's not happening again. And Rodney Hammond said, you can put my word on it. That shit from last year is not happening again on this year. It'll be a completely different team of how they do things. And that's called leadership. There's a number of different leaders on this team this year, and it continues to get better day in and day out. Back to the comments section here. Obviously, we had some comments go through here. Who are some sleepers on the defensive line? We'll go into that here. Went to the Steelers game. Zach Frazier did a really damn good job. I think, he did good after he came in. We'll see when they go in the regular season. I want to give some advice to anybody who deals with Fred Snare. Please ignore him because I wish I did in the first place. Yeah, I've had him blocked for a long time. Again, he's a weird, creepy dude from Penn State. At the end of the day, it's just how most of them are anyways. I don't engage with them because it's just really weird what he does on social media. JJ, do you see them using the Kent State game? This is a great question, T-Man. Do you see them using the Kent State game as a deciding factor in naming a starter QB this year? Team, and it's a very good point. And I think that, will it decide it? I don't know if it's going to decide it, but here's what I do know. I think, I don't say I want to know, but in my honest opinion, I'm 90% sure Nate Yarnell and Eli Holstein are going to play in that game. I don't know how they're going to divide up the reps, but you're going to see both those guys play in that game with the first team repetitions. That's just my opinion from things that I've seen and things that I've heard. And I think it's a good thing. In my personal opinion, I think the leadership standpoint goes to, Nate Yarnell. He's been here longer. The guys respect him in that locker room. And I think he's a great player. You guys, and again, I took so much heat last year from certain people in the fan base that anytime I called for Nate Yarnell, this guy's an idiot. He has no idea what he's talking about. Well, on that roster last year, Nate Yarnell was the best quarterback. This year, right now, I think Nate Yarnell is a ready-to-go guy. Nate Yarnell would be that number one. But when it comes to higher potential and a higher ceiling, Holstein has the higher ceiling. He runs a 4.5 40, got a tremendous strong arm. I think, only as a redshirt freshman, I think he's a guy that's going to push for playing time. I think he's hot on the tails. And I told people, and I talked to this on Twitter, and again, I was told I was crazy. I think it's a quarterback competition, all this stuff. I told people from the get-go, this was going to be a quarterback competition because this kid is only a redshirt freshman, but he's damn good. He was rated a 4-star for a reason. He was recruited by Alabama, Texas A&M, Ole Miss for a reason. Guys like Lane Kiffin, guys like Jimbo Fisher, guys like Nick Saban for a reason. Guys like Hugh Freeze at Auburn. The numbers and the offers pointed to themselves. They saw the talent. Just my opinion. And I think that's why it's there. For the Kent State game, I see them both playing. Now, here's the thing, though. I see them both playing, but until I see something different, the only time I in the 9 years that Pat Narduzzi's been the head football coach at Pitt, there has been one season where they opened their offense up, and I want to say opened it up, but like didn't really show too much. They actually ran their offense, but really didn't open it up. But just the talent was so elite. Was 2021 Kenny Pickett's senior year with Jordan Addison, where that first game against Austin Peay, they scored 70 points. I mean, they just ripped it. That was the first year I actually saw Pitt really run their offense. I think this year, in my honest opinion, I think they're going to be vanilla again. They don't want to show certain stuff. I think that, from my personal opinion, I think that's idiotic for a new offense. This team needs to run their offense and become more effective and create cohesion, but also see here's where we're good and here's where we're bad. You have to know what you have, because at the end of the day, you're going to Cincinnati, which I don't see them being a good football team this year. With average quarterback play, we should have won last year. Hell, we almost won with mediocre quarterback play from Jakovic, who threw for 39 or 38% completion percentage. They lost a lot to the transfer portal. They still have Kiner, the running back there. I think we'll be prepared for the running game this year. We'll see what the quarterback play looks like. I think they had a lot of question marks there. But you got to run your offense. I mean, any given day, it's college football. Anybody can beat anybody. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. And I think they're going to try to save as much stuff for the West Virginia game. Obviously at home. Again, I was there in 2021. That was a tremendous football game, and just proud of Pitt fans for showing out like they always do for the rivalry games. Just a tremendous atmosphere. I expect it to be another one. Week 3 again. You'll probably see again College Game Day or something come to Pitt. That'll be a fun game to watch. But overall, I see that game potentially having a deciding factor in terms of maybe week 3 or week 4. But you really want to have your guy in place. And I think that, we'll see who it is, but whoever plays better, I will certainly get the grab. But I think that overall, when they go into it, I really expect to see probably at this point, while it's still a battle, I expect to see Nate Yarnell week 2 and week 3. If we have question marks still at the quarterback position in week 2 or week 3, that means he's not playing well and we've lost those games. So, at worst, after the first 4 games, you'll see Pitt at 2-2 or 3-1. I think they take care of business in Cincinnati unless something drastic happens. In my personal opinion, I think Pitt comes out of the 4-game stretch in the first 4 games 3-1 or 4-0, because they're going to beat, in my opinion, they'll beat Kent State, they'll beat Youngstown State. That's 2 wins, and I think they at least take one of the 2 games against Cincinnati and West Virginia. So that's just my opinion. But we'll see. That's a great question, team, man. But I think both guys, to answer your one question, is it the deciding factor? I don't think it will be the deciding factor, but both of those guys will play, and you guys will see what they do in that first game. Great clip. Yeah, WRW Pitt, obviously, from Kade Bell. Sooner in Texas, what's up, man? What's up, JJ? What's going on, dude? Sooner in Texas, hello. Let's see here. Mark, great clip with Kade. Thanks for sharing. No problem. Always love to share that kind of stuff when guys like him, who haven't been in front of a mic for a while, it's always good to have you guys listen to them and see what they talk about. And again, too, obviously, Inside the Panthers, they put that on their YouTube channel. I know Chris Peak probably had it on his and whatnot, but obviously follow Inside the Panthers on YouTube. Let me see here with a question here. When does the arbitrary $22 million salary cap start in college football? The sooner the better for schools like Pitt. I agree. There's going to be some really important cuts coming, though. There's going to be some important decisions. I can tell you this. Joan Gable, new chancellor at University of Pittsburgh, Heather Lyke. If you were on that call, that Q&A on the Alliance 412 special edition where it's a Q&A, Pat Narduzzi said, Joan Gable and Heather Lyke have clearly stated that they're going to do whatever they can to be competitive in terms of that $22 million salary mark. Will they use all the $22 million? I don't know about that. I think 80% of it probably is going to go towards football. It's that simple, because football is just a big name, the big brand. 80%, I'd say 90% of it probably, or 85 to 90% will go towards football and basketball. I expect that. But when it comes into play, it'll be the 2025 year. So not this year, but next year. From my understanding, there's probably some more details handed out. There might be some other stuff that comes out that might push that back to 2026. But from where we are right now, I've heard at the beginning of the school year, probably in June of 2025 is when we start to hear that, the next school year. So next year. Great clip with Kade. Cincinnati will be a good game. I agree. Sooner in Texas. Again, a rivalry game for us. I expect us to bounce back and take that win. So why is WVU over under at 6? Daniel, that's a great question. West Virginia has a lot of, returning talent. Obviously, Garrett Green coming back, C.J. Donaldson, Jaheim White, Jaden Bray, obviously on the outside, wide receiver they got coming in from Oklahoma State. I think there's still some question marks. They have some newer guys on the defensive side of the football, especially the defensive back position. They brought a couple guys in from Northwestern. The PFF grades are really good, but at the end of the day, it's at Northwestern. Obviously, in that West Division, too. Their schedule wasn't exactly the strongest. I think that's probably why. It's probably a couple quick things that really happen. But also, too, probably what it is, Daniel, is that they want to see, and I think what probably more people are having the question marks around is, Neil Brown needs to do this a couple times. Neil Brown's been there for 5 years. He's had 3 losing seasons. The 1 year he had a winning season, he was 6-4, lost a bowl game in 2020 during the COVID year. That was important. Last year, he was 9-4. I think it was good they beat North Carolina, but the question with North Carolina is obviously they were missing half the roster, and they were missing the 3rd overall pick in Drake May. That's a big question mark, I think the schedule, they've marked it a little bit tougher, obviously, with West Virginia. I think some of those teams on that schedule, I think, are a little bit overrated. I think the hard teams on that schedule will be like Oklahoma State, Kansas State. I think they'll be difficult. I think people are overstating Arizona. There's a whole new coaching staff there. I think they take a step back. I think West Virginia has a really good chance to really climb up, the rankings in terms of the Big 12 because there really are no heavy hitters. They dodge Utah. They don't face Utah this year. They head out to Arizona, but they don't face Arizona State from what my understanding is. I think overall, when you look at that schedule, I think they still face Kansas. Iowa State, they have Iowa State as a tough, game this year because they got returning talent. But the last 4 years, Campbell has not done well at Iowa State. I think that's a little overrated. I think West Virginia is better than them, to be quite honest with you. So I think their schedule will be a little bit easier this year, to be quite honest with you. I think just, again, you still got Oklahoma State. You still got Kansas State. You still got Kansas. Those games are on there. Obviously, you still got Penn State to start the game up, to start the year off. You've got Pitt. So you certainly have those number of games in there where, hey, it's, they're out of conference schedules hard, with Penn State and Pitt. But then you have, those two. Then you have, Kansas again, 3, Kansas State 4, Oklahoma State 5. So, you got some games in there. They have to show this year that they can go to that next level. And I think that's what it is. If they win 9 games again this year, then they'll get some respect. But you got to do it more than 1 year. Steel Will. JJ, thoughts on Deion Sanders' comments from this week? Would love a Pitt versus Colorado bowl game to end the Cold War between them. LOL. So obviously, I'll go into this here real quick. Before I got to go into obviously the stuff here. Obviously, we're 33 minutes in already. Holy hell! Before we go into obviously the fall camp stuff, but I talked about this a little bit on Twitter, guys. What bothered me is with Deion Sanders, man. What really bothers me is the comments that he had, and again, it was kind of from Deion Hayes. Pat Narduzzi recently said in an interview saying, "Hey, we've got a guy like Nate Matlack," which he's not lying. Nate Matlack is going full tilt every play. Deion Hayes didn't. That's not lying. That's being God's honest truth, and that's from me talking to guys from, that's from me talking to guys from around the program. That wasn't something that was just blown up to where, that's just Narduzzi being Narduzzi. The fact is that's the truth. And there were a lot of question marks from Deion Hayes, from a full tilt guy. It is what it is, at the end of the day. But when you look at a guy like, Deion Sanders, to where, Pat Narduzzi said nothing wrong. He stuck up for players, man. When he took the job at Pitt, he didn't force anybody out. He did it, he did it a certain way. He wanted to do it his way. Obviously he didn't have the transfer portal at the time, so you really couldn't move certain players at a certain rate. But Pat Narduzzi is a player's coach. The stuff coming out at Colorado right now, the circus that's going on there right now. My biggest thing is that Deion Sanders needs to stop talking and actually win some football games. He had a losing record last year. He got blown out of the water from numerous teams in the Pac-12 last year. Didn't have a winning record. Fired Sean Lewis, his offensive coordinator, demoted him. Sean Lewis had no intention of going back. I know he tried having conversations with Pitt for an offensive coordinator position, but then he got a head coaching job at San Diego State. He's a great coordinator, and he's going to be another great head coach again for San Diego State. He's got Pat Shermer up there as his offensive coordinator. I think that's an absolutely horrendous hire. Pat Shermer took over with 4 games to go last year, didn't win a single football game. Their offense was mediocre. I think that's a very big question mark of who he brings into there. I just think the way Deion Sanders is doing stuff right now, you can talk about, and then what's even worse is he thought he was owning Pat Narduzzi, but then he blatantly said he can't develop talent, but Pat Narduzzi can. So, at the end of the day, wish Deion Hayes and Sammy O the best, Sam Oklahoma the best, but, we'll see what they do. At the end of the day, the comments that Deion Hayes made, you better win a lot of football games up there and you better play well. That's all I can say. And I saw a clip recently of it wasn't even an offensive tackle he was going against. I mean, Deion Hayes blew him up, but it wasn't even a tackle. I don't know what the hell they're doing up there. It's an absolute joke. But then again, I'm not shocked. It's Deion Sanders. You're at the end of the day, I was rooting for him hard, but just the way that he's running things, he won't answer questions from certain outlets. I mean, it's just a shit show up there. It's a circus, and he needs to be a better job at leading men. I can tell you that. Promoting WVU, isn't that a sin? Trust me, I am not promoting WVU. Cannot wait to beat them this year. Arizona State, Colorado, BYU, Houston, and Utah is who we don't play. BYU is going to be bad. Houston's going to be bad. Utah actually probably will win the Big 12 this year. Arizona State, I think they bounce back a little bit. Colorado, I don't expect them to win more than 5 or 6 games this year. They'll be lucky to get to a bowl, so we'll see. Timothy Green, can't wait for the first game of the year. We are waiting to beat Penn State really bad. We will see. I don't have you guys winning that game. I think Drew Aller has a lot to prove. I'll be interested to see how West Virginia's defense plays, how they bounce back from the loss last year to Penn State. We'll see, though. I'm excited to see what they do. Anthony, JJ, I think they will go 8-4, which will be a good turnaround and good first season for Bell. Hey, we had a good conversation on X earlier, but I have much respect. I hear you, Anthony. And again, always respect, man. Again, I always, agree to disagree. And not a big deal. That's why I love conversations. I love dialogue and I love debates, man. That's what it is. That's why we're here. Anthony, to your point here, 8-4. I actually had that on one of the videos. If you guys go back to one of the lives, I did a game by game analysis. I had 8-4. I did see some fall camp videos. I bumped it to 9-3, but I for me personally, I had the floor at 6-6. And I have their ceiling at 9-3. So your analysis here, 8-4, I agree with 100%. I think that an 8-4 would be a hell of a bounce back year, Anthony. And on top of that, you get a bowl game win at 9-4. You're back to 9 wins again. So in 4 years, you've got nine or more wins. That's a tremendous job. I mean, that puts Pat Narduzzi back in the honeymoon phase, and puts him back in a good spot. So, Anthony, if 8-4 happens, I'd be happy with that. That's back to where it needs to be. And then allow Kade Bell, which, again, Pitt will be buyers next year in terms of the transfer portal, NIL situation. I've heard it's been very good. So, again, I expect that to be really good as well. So, I agree, Anthony. 8-4 would be a hell of a bounce-back year. Timothy Green, brother, in keeping my score, 30-24, Dub V. Any redshirt freshman that will make impacts on the offensive side of the ball? Great question. I think on the offensive side of the football, I would say in terms of freshman or redshirt freshman, potentially, I'm going to go with as a redshirt freshman. I'd say Joel Goff at running back. I think he's had a really good camp from things that I've heard. I think he can get a lot of touches because Pitt's going to go really fast this year in terms of tempo. They're going to need certain guys to go in there consistently. I think Joel Goff is a guy to watch for. Potentially, if we get down in depth, Caleb Holmes on the offensive line, he's been taking a lot of snaps at the center position. I think he's done a really good job on offense. But I think for the most part, I mean, you look across the board in terms of the offense, I think they just have a lot of talent in terms of, the wide receiver room, the tight end, you got more veterans there. At the offensive line position, you'll have more veterans there. Quarterback, same thing. Redshirt freshman, I guess it would be, Eli Holstein, potentially quarterback if he wins that job. If he gets in there, he takes the lead on that. I think it's kind of where we are at that point. So I'd say really redshirt freshman-wise, I would say, the guys to look for, or freshman-wise, Eli Holstein, Caleb Holmes, or Jules Goff, the running back, and even potentially Montravius Lloyd, another running back to watch for. Hello, Daniel there, Mountaineers. You know the two things that West Virginia and Pitt Panthers have in common is we don't like Penn State. Can we agree on that one? Timothy Green, amen. I do not like Penn State. Trust me. Exactly what I'm saying. Just got a chance to join. Brian, did you cover the groundhog climbing into the arcade clog game to get that Pitt Dino Cat football? That's a great one, guys. If you haven't seen the picture, you should go on Twitter and see a groundhog was recently rescued from a arcade clog game, and right next to him was a bar stool, and it had the Pitt Dino Cat on it. It was pretty impressive. That's a great comment, Brian. That's a really good one. I forgot about that. Guys, if you have not done so, you should go see that and look that up online. A tremendous picture. Happy the groundhog was okay, but also, too, got to like the Dino Cat. Talk is Pitt. How are you doing today, sir? It's not going to happen, but what does Kent State need to do to hang around, and what's that mean if Pitt and Kent State does hang around and close? Yeah, Kent State's not going to hang around, and if they do hang around, yeah, Pitt's in a lot of trouble this year. They need to stop the run against Pitt. They need to be able to contain the passing game, but more importantly, they got to be able to move the football on Pitt's defense, which I just don't see happening. They're not going to be able to run the football. They might get a couple touch plays, maybe down the field just from the outside. If they get lucky here and there, they'll put some backups in, especially, but I highly doubt it happens. All right, guys, let's go into what I got here. Last 20 minutes of the show here from the camp, from the spring game scrimmage. From the fall scrimmage here, the first scrimmage of the fall camp. Obviously, they have one more scrimmage next week. The biggest thing is, obviously, most people would probably guess by now, Pitt won on the Pitt's defense won the scrimmage, but there were good things from both sides. We're going to go over here the potential guys here. We're going to start on defense, what they look like, but offense was able to move the football at times. I think they need to be more consistent, but you saw a number of different plays. Again, quarterbacks have done a lot better job in fall camp compared to the spring camp, and as you guys can imagine, when you bring a new offense in, that's kind of expected. And the same thing right now. The fact that they continue to get better and better is the biggest thing. But overall, on the defense, the first things first, at the linebacker position, three guys that I think that you all should take a look at on a consistent basis who have really done a good job here in camp are, one, Rasheem Biles, Brandon George, and Kyle Lewis. And again, I've talked about it before with Kyle Lewis and Rasheem Biles. I think they're going to have really big years. The linebacker room, I think it's starting to take mold to where it's actually probably going to be the strongest position on Pitt's defense this year. I think right now, when you look at the linebacker room, I talked about Rasheem Biles, Brandon George, and Kyle Lewis really pushing their limits and leading the way at this point. But also, too, from things that I've heard, also you have Key Thompson, the transfer from Ohio, the first team All-MAC player out of Ohio. He's done a tremendous job this fall camp. He's actually had a couple interceptions. He's done a good job. Braylon Lovelace, he's done a really good job. Jordan Bass has been implemented here and there. They want to make sure he stays healthy. He was really out all of spring camp. They're putting him in there. Obviously, he'll play a lot this fall. A guy who's really important to this defense. I think he's done a tremendous job. But also, too, the four-star linebacker out of Aliquippa, the true freshman, Cameron Lindsay, has had a number of turnovers as well. He's done a tremendous job here this camp. I think on defense, he's a guy that could potentially see some time on special teams, but even get his way into the defense. It all comes down to how fast he can learn the defense, because obviously you look at Pat Narduzzi's defense, it's in the base a lot of times, but there's a lot of packages where they do a lot of really variety in terms of blitzes. When you look at how Pitt runs their defenses, obviously different, in terms of the Delta package, what they're doing at their base. They like to have a variety of what they do. Obviously, it's that's Pat Narduzzi's bread and butter. The same thing with Randy Bates. And again, that goes back to a guy, I've talked about a number of different times, linebacker coach Ryan Manilak, who continues to recruit at a high level. 4-star Cameron Lindsay, 4-star Jordan Bass. I think when you look at a guy like Key Thompson, who was first team All-MAC, he's back here again and continues a very guy that he was known as a guy always around the football. I think overall he'll continue to do a great job. But also, too, in there, obviously, you got really, I had what they're 3, 6, 7. So those 7 guys at linebacker, that's a lot of depth at the linebacker position. It's really transformed, and Ryan Manilak has done a really good job of developing that room. Brandon George, obviously, consistently continuing to be a leader. It was really good to make sure we got him back. When we saw, he realized, what, he needed to stay at Pitt. There were some really good other options out there. Places like Nebraska were calling in the Big Ten, a couple other Big Ten schools. Really good to keep him here. A really good, talented veteran, was a 4-star linebacker coming out of high school. Just really good overall leadership, and he'll be in the middle there. And I think a guy that continues to step up and really do a good job overall when it comes to this defense. And the defensive tackle position, was a question earlier on from somebody. Who can we look, when you look at the defensive line room, looked at as a potential weakness. But as fall camp has gone on, the reviews out of camp have looked really good. I think the defensive tackle room has more depth, more guys you can rotate in. I think it'll be a stronger room than what you see in terms of the defensive end room. But defensive tackle, guys that have really had an outstanding camp that, again, continue to prove really well. Sean Fitzsimmons, Isaiah Ghost Neal, and Anthony Johnson, along with Nakai Johnson. Those guys have really stepped up and had a tremendous camp. But also, too, again, Sean Fitzsimmons, Nick James continues to play really well. We've heard a little bit about Elliott Donald, the nephew of Aaron Donald, the 4-star defensive tackle out of Central Catholic from, I think it was the 2020 or 2021 year. He's in his third year right now. Again, tremendous football player. I think he's done a great job. Also, too, Francis Brayu. These are two guys to look for, true freshmen. Francis Brayu, the guy is built like a brick shithouse. A tremendous physique in terms of what he's able to do potentially, and if not, from what guys have said, the strongest guy clearly in this Pitt locker room on defense or offense. The guy continues to step up. I expect him to get some time this year, and then from the fall, spring, from the scrimmage here this past weekend, Jasir Whittington, the 4-star defensive tackle, had a number of great plays. He did really well, made his presence known here, so that's a guy to watch for in terms of what they're able to do. I think, again, you look at that defensive tackle room overall, you've got 1, 2, Sean Fitzsimmons, Nick James, Nakai Johnson continues to play well, and the size he's put on. Let me tell you something. To go from, and Pat Narduzzi talked about it potentially, on his end, he probably messed up. He should have moved him in earlier, moved him inside because he's, a smaller guy at 6'2", but then again, he's quick. He's twitchy. He's able to get off the ball, get around people, move people out of the way, and again, helps us with the run game. I think Pitt is back to doing what it does really well, and that's guys that are more athletic and can play vertical. Pitt's defense is all about vertical play, not horizontal. The days of, and what Pitt does of the guys that take up space, I guess a guy like Anthony Johnson can be that guy. He's 6'3", 6'4", almost 300 pounds. The guy's jacked, I can tell you that. I think overall, when you look at those two guys, you look at Anthony Johnson and Sean Fitzsimmons, they're really the two guys I think that can lead the way. I think, Nakai Johnson's fighting to get that starting spot as well. He's put on a lot of weight. He's put on a lot of muscle. I think he continues to play well. I'm excited to see him play this fall. He continues to do really well. 4-star defensive tackle Nick James has continued to improve how fast he's gone from where he was in spring to where he is now. The repetitions are certainly there. I think in terms of the starting two, you're probably going to have, Scott, Sean Fitzsimmons that starts there. And I think you'd probably have Anthony Johnson or Nakai Johnson. I think, Johnson and Johnson. I think those two have done a tremendous job. But in Pitt's defense, they need at least 4 guys to rotate in for how fast, for what they do in terms of being fresh. So I think the 4 top guys, you look at them, you look at, Sean Fitzsimmons, Anthony Johnson, Nakai Johnson, and even I'd put up there, Isaiah Ghost Neal in that 4th spot, and then even potentially slide in Nick James. It's all in a circle right now. But it's a very deep position, in my opinion. I think people were really undervaluing that position. Yeah, they might be young. They might not have a lot of experience. It's something you have to look at and potentially have questions about. But overall, for how they've performed, I think they're going to be really good this year. And I think Tim Dowse has done a really good job of coaching those guys up. So you got really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys you can really rotate in to that defensive tackle room. I think overall it's just going to be really good for them to continue to play really well. And I think that room is just really deep. At the defensive end position, Nate Matlack, Jimmy Scott, Chief Borders, and Sincere Edwards will be really your top 4 guys there. I think Nate Matlack is clearly the leader in that room. He continues to play at a high level. The transfer from Kansas State out of the Big 12 moved from Kansas State to come to Pitt to play in a 4-3 system where he's able to be a guy that puts his hand in the dirt and be a legitimate pass rusher on the outside. He's done a really good job from everything I've heard. He's clearly the number 1 guy in terms of the depth chart. Number 2 at this point, I'd have Jimmy Scott right there. I think, the guy that has just really improved, and you started to see it towards the end of the year last year when he started getting more repetitions. I think he takes that jump this year. At number 3, Chief Borders. He had a number of good plays, I heard. in the scrimmage here this past weekend. He continues to get better. That was a projection base when you see a guy like him where he played, inside and outside. Obviously Nebraska's defense was a 3-4, not a 4-3. So it's all projection based on what they look like. He has really adapted well from what I've been told. He continues to get better day in and day out. And then obviously too, Sincere Edwards, a true freshman. You're going to see a guy like him, I think, that continues to get better and better. And from what I've been told, he's just the opportunity for him to rise up the ranks a lot quicker is because of guys like Samio and Deion Hayes leaving. And I think that's a major production standpoint to where he's going to be able to really stand up. And again, we'll be spending some NIL money to keep him here because he's done that good of a job so far, for his jump from spring camp all the way to fall camp. Behind them, though, those four. I think behind them, though, you potentially got only really two guys, and that's David Ajebi and Maverick Rossio. I think really those are your six defensive ends. David Ajebi continues to get better. Kind of struggled really a little bit coming over from Clemson, the 4-star transfer from Clemson. Struggled a little bit in spring camp. You really didn't hear too much about him. He had to continue to learn the defense. I think he took it a little bit slower. Didn't exactly adapt as good as we wanted to, from what I've heard out of Pitt, but continues to get better. He's clearly made the jump from spring to fall. That's really good to hear. I think that's really good. And then obviously too, when you got guys like, again, when you got guys who can really move in and out, I think Elliott Donald can move obviously outside as well, but from out of camp, I mean, I've heard a number of good things from Elliott Donald in terms of defensive tackle room. So that's what you love to hear. So he could play inside or outside, but he's done a damn good job on the inside, I've heard so far this year. And obviously, too, David Ajebi and Maverick Rossio. Those two guys will be behind them. So those are really your six defensive ends that I think will get the most playing time and really where their depth chart is at this point. Nate Matlack, Jimmy Scott, Chief Borders, Sincere Edwards, David Ajebi, and then Maverick Rossio. And David, if I'm mispronouncing your last name, I apologize. I probably am. So I apologize about that. Now at the cornerback position. This is where things get a little bit dicier. I think there's more question marks around here. The number one guy at the cornerback position who clearly has done the best so far in the fall is Ryland Gandy. Ryland Gandy has just been, from what, Pat Narduzzi has said, things that I've heard, just consistent day in and day out. He's clearly the number one cornerback. They'll need him to stay healthy this year in terms of being productive. The guy who's really the leader in that cornerback room. Number two, I think you got a guy, it's really a tie between Tame and Lynham. He's very physical, very lanky, a guy who's built really well. I think he's extremely athletic, very physical, a hard hitter. Pat Narduzzi has talked about him a little bit here and there, but obviously, too, right there with him would be Rashad Battle. I think you look at those three guys, those are the kind of guys you look at and say, hey, those three, I think overall are your top three guys. After that, that's kind of where, it's kind of like those three guys, and then you have that ... and then there's other names. The three guys at the top, Ryland Gandy, Tame and Lynham, and then Rashad Battle. But then after that, these guys, I think, continue to get better, but they gotta close the gap. I think that's kind of where we are at this point. And that's, Noah Bigelow, Jeremiah Anglin. Obviously, Jeremiah Anglin, the 4-star transfer from Kentucky. Obviously talking about coming over to Pitt. Loves Archie Collins, who, again, Archie Collins continues to recruit out of his mind. Same thing with Corey Sanders. Jeremiah Anglin, I think he continues to get better. He'll continue to get better and close that gap. We're going to need him to get more depth besides those three guys. It's pretty important. But Noah Bigelow, also too, what we've heard at camp, Shadarian Harrison. If you guys remember him, he was a big time recruit. Went through the injury bug last year, but he continues to get better. A little bit slower, obviously coming back from injury. That was a big thing. But he continues to climb the ranks. Still behind those three at a distant bit. But he's a guy that continues to get better. And obviously, too, then Tamarian Crumpley. He's a guy that's back there as well. But Noah Bigelow, Jeremiah Anglin, Shadarian Harrison, and Tamarian Crumpley. If you look at those guys, overall, 1, 2, 3, 4, those four guys, they're back there. They continue to get better. It's important to see them here in these last 2 weeks of camp, figure out what the hell they can do. I think they continue to get better and better. I think, Jeremiah Anglin's going to be a guy who competes to play this year as that fourth guy. I think Noah Bigelow can be a guy that stands up, and then Shadarian Harrison, as he continues to get better, I think he's going to have a chance to play a lot as well. And same thing with Tamarian Crumpley, but that group together, that four, I think will really tell us what we have here in the next couple weeks. But right now, it's just the three guys that we have for sure are Rylan Gandy, Taman Lynham, and then Rashad Battle. And then obviously Rashad Battle's been through the injury bug these last 3 years. We hope he can stay healthy. That'd be a great thing. But after those three, it's kind of question marks. Those other guys need to get closer to that group in terms of depth. So that's important. Then to the safety group, obviously, this is another deep group. Obviously, you got Donovan McMillan, Javon McIntyre as your two guys. I think they're your two starters as you go into, fall camp and as you go into the regular season. But also, too, Cruz Brookins continues to have an incredible camp. I think it's going to be extremely hard to keep him off the field. The guy continues to play lights out. People, if you remember him out of Steel Valley, last year as a true freshman, I think people really undervalued him. I think he's that damn good. Pitt fans were a little unhappy when they took him, Whippy, hometown hero, guy that wasn't exactly highly rated, 3-star recruit. He's worked his ass off. His work ethic is second to none. He's going to be a tremendous football player for Pitt, and he continues to get better. Again, had a tremendous spring camp, and he's turned it on again in the fall camp. So he'll be playing a lot. Obviously, you got P.J. O'Brien back there, and obviously, too, Jesse Anderson. So you got really 5 guys back there you can rotate in, which is tremendous. I think that's going to be your strongest group between the cornerbacks and the safeties. Cornerbacks, again, just need more depth there, but the safety position, it's really good to have safety depth because guess what? That's one of the most important spots on this defense, especially the field safety position. I think that probably the best field safety that we've ever had at Pitt under the Pat Narduzzi was DeMar Hamlin. It was hard to find that next guy. Eric Howlett got a lot better in his time period. He did a tremendous job there. And now you got really Javon McIntyre really back there. And I think you got as well Javon McIntyre, P.J. O'Brien can stick back there as well. And Jesse Anderson can do the same thing as well. So that's a bunch of guys to watch back there. Now we run over to, I know we're getting to that point. We'll go over the hour mark. I want to get you guys information. I promise you guys this stuff. Plus, I've been off the radar for 2 weeks, so we can certainly go longer. But here, JJ Kitchen, congratulations on a great show. I think you do a wonderful job, sir. Good luck in this upcoming season. Timothy, I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. And again, if you haven't done so, make sure you follow Kuz's Corner as well. If you haven't done so, great guy over there. We'll be doing a video together when we get closer to the Backyard Brawl. So continue, really good job there. And thank you so much to all the West Virginia fans that watch the show as well. Again, the show is great because of you guys. So thank you so much for the compliment. Steel Will, I think linebacker core is going to be improved this season, and that has the potential to be really great in 2025. I agree. I think they're going to be great this year, though. Wait till you see them play. I think they're going to be that good. I think Anthony Johnson and Sean Fitzsimmons will start at deep tackle, but with Jashir Whittington and Francis Bray will heavily challenge him. To start, I disagree. I think that Jashir Whittington and Francis Bray will certainly get their time in there, but they're certainly not competing to start right now. I can tell you that. They'll be in a rotation, but the top two, it isn't going to be those two. I can tell you that. Nick James is certainly in front of them. Nakai Johnson is certainly in front of them. Francis Bray and Jashir Whittington will get time, though. I think they're that good. Haven't heard much about Jashir Whittington, but I think he could really make some noise by the end of camp. I can tell you this, he had a damn good scrimmage, and he's done a really good job there. He just continues to get better and better. This is just a really good defense for him to perform. You'll hear more and more about him, and you'll see him more in those first 2 or 3 games to see how well he does. Nervous, haven't heard much about Elliot Donald. From what I've heard is that he continues. He's had really taken a step up this year where you haven't heard much from him before. In the past 2 or 3 years, he's really taken that next level step this year. Is he going to be that 1 or 2 guy? Is he going to be the starter at 1 or 2? I don't think so. I don't expect it, but he'll be a rotational guy because he continues to get better. And I think he's really going to take that leap this year. I think he's going to do a good job this year in terms of depth. Will Sincere Edwards be asked to switch to linebacker because of his height? We have done well with undersized ends before. There is absolutely, positively no conversation about him going to linebacker. That would be a bad move. He wouldn't be good as linebacker. He's 6'1", 6'2". If you remember Awan Price, he reminds me a lot of Awan Price, a guy in that 6', 6'1" area. You look at his angle, the way he's able to pass rush, a lot like Awan Price. Sincere Edwards is needed on the defensive end, at the defensive end position in terms of just depth and actual bodies. Nate Temple being out this year with injury certainly didn't help. But overall, there is no conversation about him going to linebacker. He wouldn't do well there at all anyways. He's a defensive end. He's going to do really good this year, defensive end. I can tell you that. Gandy should have played more last year. I mean, overall, when you had a number of guys out there, when you had, MJ Devonshire, Marquez Williams. I mean, when those two guys are out there the most, I mean, that's kind of important to keep them out there. I mean, it's kind of hard to beat them out. No, they won't move Edwards. Look at what Price did when he played. Adam was already reading my mind, man. At the end of the day, just, since your Edwards would not be a good linebacker, it's just not a fit, especially what Pitt does at linebacker. I mean, he can't play the star position because he can't cover in space. You wouldn't put him at will or Mike, obviously, for what you're asking him to do for quickness-wise. He's a bona fide DN, and he's going to be damn good at defensive end. I think he's going to be that good as a true freshman. We'll be using NIL funds to keep him here, I can tell you that. But to the defense, to the offense, the quarterback room, obviously, as you can imagine, the top three, Nate Yarnell, Eli Holstein, and Ty Diefenbach. Obviously, I think that the 1-2 punch right now is obviously Nate Yarnell and Eli Holstein. They continue to battle it out from how well and from things that I've heard, from how they've played, from you look from the spring to the fall camp, it's night and day for how well these guys have done, and that's a credit and an attribute to how hard they work in terms of just not just on the football field but off the football field. The film study, that's where really a lot of things get done. I think they've done a really good job with Kade Bell, J.J. Laster, all those guys getting into a room and just going over tape. They continue to get better. Obviously, the second scrimmage will tell us more because obviously in the scrimmage, the defense did really well. I just think that's overall a commending comment to just how well our defense is going to be this year. I think Pitt's back to what they do best. Undersized defensive linemen, more speed, playing vertically, tackles for loss, sacks, but also, too, it's going to help them this year as an offense that can actually move the football and score. But those are really your top three. It's certainly still a quarterback competition between Nate Yarnell and Eli Holstein. We'll continue to monitor how that goes. The second scrimmage, obviously, the second week of camp, or really third week of camp this week. The second scrimmage will be, next Saturday. That'll be huge. So we'll continue to watch that. Then obviously the running back room, Rodney Hammond, Desmond Reed, and Derek Davis Jr. are really the top three guys you have there in terms of backs. Rodney Hammond obviously doing what, he's just been consistent throughout camp. It was good to get him healthy and get him back out there for this fall camp. Desmond Reed continues to impress. I think, people thought since he was really small, he reminds me of, a lot like what West Virginia was doing because, Jaheim White's actually smaller than Desmond Reed. Jaheim White's like, 5'6", 5'7". Desmond Reed's 5'8". The guy runs hard, plenty of speed. And then you got a bigger back like Derek Davis where, he was interviewed this week and talked about how, Lindsey Lamar is a guy who's continuing to push them and coach every running back in that position. So you have those three. And then also, too, you've got Jules Goff, the true freshman, and then Montavious Lloyd. Those two guys are certainly there. I think they continue to get better. Jules Goff showed a lot in terms of the spring game, just how hard he runs and able to fall forward. Reminds me a lot, like Desmond Reed and Jules Goff. And I think you look at those guys, and they're a lot like a Jalen Warren. Just they always fall forwards when they're tackled, they're going forward. And the same thing with Montravius Lloyd. You saw a little bit of sparks last year. I think he's a good running back, and he'll continue to get some time this year as well. At the wide receiver position, number one, this guy just continues to take off in terms of the wide receiver room. Konate Mumfield. That's your number one guy at this point in the way that he's playing right now. He takes care of his body. You heard Pat Narduzzi talk about in an interview, pre-practice. He takes care of his body. He watches film. He knows what he needs to do. He's consistent day in and day out of what he needs to do in practice and in the scrimmage. So that's your number one guy, and I think it's not even close. At number two, Kenny Johnson continues to play really well. Again, and this type of offense for this year, I think really for this year and next year, Kenny Johnson's going to be a major part. And I think he's in this offense, he's going to really excel. And he'll be an NFL guy. I just think he has all the attributes. I think this offense will certainly prove it. Kade Bell wants to push the ball down the field. They're certainly going to be able to throw the football quite a bit. So you'll be seeing a lot of Kenny Johnson. You saw in the spring game, it's kind of, there's a reason why they try to give him the ball a lot because he's going to be a guy that just really beats his one-on-one and beats his matchup. Then you go into a guy like Raphael Poppy Williams, smaller in stature, but plenty of speed. Gavin Bartholomew talked about this, this past week. It's not about the size. It's about winning your one-on-one battles. And also, too, they said the guy flies. Plenty of speed, makes contested catches. You've seen plenty of different practice tapes as well, practice clips. He continues to show great attributes in terms of speed and catching balls in traffic, and some crazy catches he's made as well. Then you still got Deion Reynolds there. He continues to be consistent in terms of catching the football in space, catching the football, obviously, in traffic as well. It's one of the things he did really well last year. If the ball was thrown and there were still one or two guys around him, he caught that football and came down with it. I expect him to do the same this year. Same thing with C.J. Lee, another guy, freshman All-American at the FCS level. I expect him to make that jump this year as well and continue to play at a high level. Did well in this past spring game and in this past scrimmage as well. And also, too, Lamar Seymour and Zion Fowler-L, two guys that are going to get time this year as well. So you look at the wide receiver room, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and potentially 7 guys. I think the wide receiver room has gotten better. I think in the beginning of spring camp, they were a little bit slower. Kanate and Kenny were at the top there. Those two guys you had really just going at a certain level, and then the rest of them really caught up. I think that, and again, Raphael Poppy Williams, C.J. Lee are going to be that 3 and 4. Deion Reynolds competing up there with that 3, 4, 5 spot. But overall, I think they've done a good job to this point. But again, the offense in general just needs to be more consistent, I think. And again, it's a new offense. Only the first scrimmage. Heck, it's only been really a week of practice, a week and a half. So you can't be really too judgmental. And especially, too, when you hear they've gotten a lot better since spring camp, you got to be happy with that. Tight end, obviously, you got Gavin Bartholomew, Jake Overman, and then Jake Renda, obviously. Just get Gavin Bartholomew the damn ball. I mean, that's kind of where we're at this point. I think Kade Bell from you've heard from other recruits talk about how Kade Bell has showed tape to tight end recruits about how they're going to use, Gavin Bartholomew and why tight ends would love it. That's incredible. Obviously, Gavin Bartholomew has been mightily underused the last 2 years, so it'll be good to get him the football this year, and I expect more of that. At the offensive line position, really cool here. And this will probably change throughout, but there's some certain guys in here that certainly have their starting spots. The starting spots for me at this point, I think, are pretty clear from these guys. Left tackle, Branson Taylor coming back again. He'll be a starter. At your center position, there's a battle between there from Lyndon Cooper and Terrence Moore. We'll see what happens there. But your starters, Branson Taylor at left tackle, right guard, B.J. Williams, and then right tackle, Ryan Bayer. Those 3 guys, in my opinion, are your penciled in starters already. But at left guard, the battle's going on between Ryan Jacoby and Jason Collier at this point at the left guard position. I think Terrence Moore could certainly play left guard as well. We'll continue to see if he moves there if they don't like what they see. But right now, from things that I've been portrayed to, Ryan Jacoby has gotten back to his form of what it was last year. He seems to be leading that position in terms of a guy that could play there and start there. I think Terrence Moore could shift to left guard if he needed to play there. But obviously, it's good to have a backup. Or, obviously the competition between Lyndon Cooper. Terrence Moore's catching up. But right now, Lyndon Cooper's that starter at center. Behind him, obviously, Terrence Moore. And behind him, Caleb Holmes, getting a lot of repetitions at the center position. They talked about him a lot, which is great to see. Obviously, Ryan, at left guard, Ryan Jacoby, Jason Collier. We've seen, Isaiah Montgomery at guard. We've seen Ryan Coretta at guard, especially at the right guard position. And then at the tackle position, Terrence Enos can certainly play at the guard position or the tackle position. He did a really good job of filling in at tackle last year. Ty Ray, he continues to get better. He'll be a great tackle addition. But also, too, Jackson Brown, I think he's going to be the first guy off the bench this year in terms of a guy who can play a swing tackle. Jackson Brown, obviously the transfer from California, obviously from Cal, which is kind of funny. Cal is now in the ACC. I think Jackson Brown has just done a good job overall between the spring and going into fall camp, which is great to hear. So you have extra depth there. So at the tackle position, you got, Jackson Brown, Ty Ray, and then Terrence Enos. At the guard position as backups, you got Ryan Coretta, Jason Collier, and then Isaiah Montgomery. And then Caleb Holmes can certainly play center or guard, obviously. I mean, the former, the 4-star offensive lineman they picked up this year. I think potentially he's a guy to watch in terms of, when it comes to offensive line depth, he could potentially be one of the first guys to come off if they need a guy at guard. Just because they got Terrence Enos and Lyndon Cooper at the center position. So we'll be able to watch them as well. Guys, that's a lot of conversation going on there. So we'll dive into some of the comments here. Haven't heard much about Shazier. Nervous, haven't heard much about Elliott. Okay, we talked about that. I think Nick James will be in the top rotation this year, coach in Narduzzi. Yeah, football hawk. Nick James continues to get better. I think that he won't be a starter, but I think he'll be in that top 4, potentially a top 4 rotation. When you look at the rotation overall, I think Sean Fitzsimmons, Anthony Johnson, Nick James, Isaiah Neal, and who else did I have there potentially in that 4? Nakai Johnson. I think that you're 4 or 5 there, and then you got Francis Brayu and Jasir Whittington sitting back there, Elliott Donald. It's a deep room at defensive tackle. And I understand from what people have talked about in terms of, hey, there's a sack. How did he do overall? Sorry if you said it already. I'm late to get on. Ryan, I think he's done a really good job. He continues to get better. He's a guy who was playing in a 3-4 system, moves to a 4-3, had a couple sacks. Again, he continues to get better as the weeks go on, and he's a summer addition. I just think overall, he was coached up really well by Matt Roll, talked about how he was the most improved player in the spring. I just think that he's going to flourish at the defensive end. And that's a projection-based look. Pat Narduzzi talked about that. He's a guy that never played in a 4-3, but when you look at projection-wise, he's a guy that wants to play uphill. As in terms of being a defensive end and playing vertical, of what Pitt does, an aggressive style vertical defense, he fits what they want to do. There's another question up here somewhere. Ryan Rosado. I think this is the Ryan Rosado from Dormont, so he's my man. Great show, JJ. Question on 2 highly recruited Whitfield guys. Do we see more of Derek Davis or Elliott Donald this year? Donald seems to be buried on the depth chart. Davis seems like he could emerge this year. Ryan, it's a great question. I think you'll see more of Derek Davis, I think. I just think the defensive tackle room is just so built up in terms of just amount of talent. I don't think that has anything to do with Elliott not being good enough. I just think the talent level, it's very deep at D tackle. I think you'll see Derek Davis more because the offense is so paced, and that they're going to have to be able to rotate guys in so much because they're moving at such a fast pace. I think a guy like Derek Davis will emerge in this type of offense. A bigger back has shown it between the spring camp and the fall camp how much better he's gotten, and he continues to get better. And also, too, I just think overall, better coaching. Better coaching has certainly helped him get to this point. And I think a guy like Lindsey Lamar comes in with a guy who played the position, younger just in terms of being able to get more energized, coaching. And the biggest difference is obviously coaching the entire room. That's something they didn't have in the last 2 years. He talked about how they were kind of just standing there during the fall camp last year where all the repetitions were going to, Rodney Hammond and, Sebo Flemister, which, that's probably a Signetti and Andre Powell situation, which I just disagree with. That's just lack of development. So, Ryan, that's a great question. I think we'll see more of Derek Davis than Elliott Donald, but not because Elliott Donald can't play. I just think that because the defensive tackle room is so stacked with how much talent they have. But I think that Derek Davis is going to have to get in there because he's a top 3 guy, and they're going to need those guys because how fast they're moving with that offense. So, great question by Ryan Rosado, and again, great guy right there. Known him since I was a young kid, so I appreciate Ryan that question, man. Hope you're doing well, brother. Obviously, tell your mom and dad and your whole family I said hello too, and your brothers. Let's see here. It's been a while since we've had 2 high-level NFL prospects at wide receiver, not just one stud and late-day caliber. Should be fun with this new system. Yeah, Will. I think this new system will finally see Konate Mumfield have the year he's supposed to have. I think, and obviously, too, in this new system, but obviously, too, better quarterback play. I mean, if Kenny Pickett was still in college, Konate Mumfield wouldn't be here because he'd be in the NFL. I think it's just how good he is. But I think he's going to have a good year. Kenny Johnson will have a good year for sure, and then everybody else, we'll see how it fills in. JJ, which of the Western Carolina transfers do you see making the most impact this season? I'm going to say, and it's a tough one. I'm going to go with Desmond Reed because they're going to have to use as many running backs as they can for how fast they go. And Pat Narduzzi has talked about him a lot in terms of what he's able to do. But the other guy I think as a close second would be Raphael Poppy Williams. His route running, from what I've been told, has been really good. But for a smaller guy, his speed level, it reminds me of hate to say it again, but I mean, you look at back in the day when West Virginia had Tavon Austin and stuff. It's kind of like what they're trying to do here, which is a really good thing for us scoring points. So I would say really number one, Desmond Reed, number two being Raphael Poppy Williams, and potentially, obviously that third one obviously is CJ Lee, the only other one, but he continues to do well as well in camp. Do you see Pitt and WVU hosting game day week 3? It's up there, man. It's a rivalry game week 3. I had to check the other games. I know there's a lot of good games on week 3, so we'll see. But I think with college game day, seeing how well the atmosphere was here, just getting them here at the game, they saw what the atmosphere was. I wouldn't be shocked if we were hosting it, to be quite honest with you. Guys, we're an hour and really 17 minutes in. Went over the time. Again, I appreciate you guys. I can't thank you guys enough for all the support of this show. I know we were absent for 2 weeks because of travel and work and everything, but this show is great because of you. If you have not done so, please subscribe, share this on Twitter, share this on Facebook with your friends, and the Facebook, Pitt Panther Fanatics, Pitt Family for Life. Just appreciate everything you guys do. The show is so great because of you guys. Just lucky to have so many people continue to watch the show, support the show, and not just the Pitt fans, man. The Clemson fans, the NC State fans, the Cal fans, West Virginia fans. I mean, that's just it's good overall, and that's what makes this fun. And that's why the Sunday conversation has become a weekly phenomenon between all you guys. I mean, we had tonight just over 200 people in here watching overall. Just again, guys, cannot thank you enough. Beyond grateful for what you guys do, but more importantly, continue to support Pitt athletics, continue to support Pitt football. If you have not done so, become a Alliance 412 member. You'll get those benefits to where you can jump on Q&As and hear the real truth behind what's going on. And again, I cannot get over how well and just how upfront Pat Narduzzi was on that Alliance 412 call. It was really incredible. So if you're not an Alliance 412 member, you'll want to become a member for sure. Guys, thanks again. As always, I appreciate everything that you do. Thank you for tuning in to another episode here at Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. If you've not done so, hit the like button before you leave and hit the share button, and then also subscribe. Guys, another episode in the books. Thank you guys so much. As always and forever, hail to Pitt and hail to the ACC. I'll see you guys next time.